first of all, it's a wonderful gathering, and there are already lots of exciting discussion about math and basic sciences. Here, I want to sort of like highlight another really exciting frontier, which is the medical sciences. So there has actually already been quietly a bunch of sort of like giant wave under the current of deep innovation of AI in medical discovery. And one of the kind of like key part of this paradigm shift is actually AI opening new possibility in clinical trials. So I'll give you 3 examples and looking forward to the discussion. So if you think about medical discovery, today, it basically, at the grand scheme of things, it basically advances 1 clinical trial at a time, right? So, and this process is largely manual, incredibly inefficient. So when you think about it, a single phase 3 trial take years to execute and cost $100 million or more. And also, despite you spend so much resources, everybody still complain about is give you relatively limited information for a small sample size, right? So as the first example, we collaborate with Providence, which is the 3rd largest health system in the US. We developed this AI called Trial Scope. And the gist of it is that we basically enable medical scientists to utilize the real world kind of like patient journey and then to conduct clinical trial virtually, right? So essentially, we basically demonstrate you can actually simulate a lot of this kind of clinical trial end-to-end directly from unstructured kind of electronic health records. So we show that actually this virtual trial can be just as accurate as the real ones by comparing against the gold standard trial for some of the blockbuster cancer treatment. So for example, this keynote 10 is for Keytruda. Some of you might know that this is one of the best immunotherapy, right? So revenue of $30 billion, 30, right? So, and obviously, like virtual trial can be much faster and cheaper, right? Now, of course, AI is no magic, right? So why this is possible? Is partially because the rapid digitization in the biomedicine, right? So a lot of those like patient journey, like from diagnosis to treatment to outcome that you study in the clinical trial are actually now routinely collected in the basically average clinical care. So basically every day you have billions and billions of data points collecting all those patient journey. Right now you are just primarily using them for billing and operation, but if we can weaponize them, we can distill the insight, then it become a population scale free lunch, right? So this, again, is sort of like just sort of the first example, right? So in the grand scheme of things, you can think about it is basically it's just an appetizer, right? So it's already very exciting because you can start to using this kind of AI to reimagine the entire clinical trial process, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars in efficiency today, right? But you can do much, much more by go beyond the text modality and then start to consider multimodal AI, right? So all those kind of like clinical text is actually highly incomplete and sort of like noisy approximation of the patient ground truth, right? So I over the years, I make a lot of friends with medical folks. They start telling me jokes, right? So radiologists will tell me they sometimes don't agree with themselves 2 months ago on the same image, right? And then pathologists that give me a trick like, turn the pathologist slide 90 degrees, you see different things, right? So, and these are some of the smartest people in the world, but the challenge is that our visual cortex, right, didn't involve in the jungle reading MRIs, right? But then the AI can potentially enable them to start to acquire that kind of medical superintelligence. So here's one example, right? So I mentioned that Keytruda. Some of you might know that despite being actually really the top frontier drugs, right, immunotherapy, the overall response rate is only 20%. Right? So, and you don't know which 20%, right? So now it's well known that tumor microenvironment actually hold the ultimate secret for precision immuno-oncology. And in particular, there was some of the new technologies such as this spatial proteomics, right? Or in particular, multiplex immunofluorescence, MIF, that basically allow you to simultaneously measure multiple proteins at the individual cellular level and preserve the entire spatial information, right? So that basically gives you essentially a whole digital map encoding the tumor microenvironment grammar that dictate the immunotherapy response, the life or death of a patient. Now, there is only one catch, right? So this kind of data are very expensive and time-consuming to generate. So generate the data for a single tissue will take days and cost thousands of dollars. And now imagine what if we want to generate spatial proteomics for everyone in the globe, right? So that will bankrupt humanity, right? So what we do is that we collaborate with Providence and University of Washington. We developed this multimodal AI called GigaTime that basically can simulate this very expensive spatial proteomics information from the kind of like the microscope pathology slide that are dirt cheap, right? A couple dollars per slide, and also readily available, right? And so, for example, in this example, you can see the middle column, that's the ground truth MIF. And then on the right, you can see the virtual MIF. Now, the virtual one would not be perfect anytime soon, but it already largely recapitulates sort of the spatial information. And then with this capability, you can start to do the good kind of hallucination at population scale, right? So we basically apply GigaTime to cancer patient cohort, 14,000 patients. We apply to all their H&E pathology slide, right? So then we basically generate this virtual population with 300,000 plus virtual MIF, right? Along with all the clinical context. So then you can start to run this basic virtual multimodal AI trial, right? You can start to correlate all those cell state in those tumor microenvironment with all the clinical variables that you care about, like the disease progression, treatment response, right? And then through this process, this enables us to uncover over 1,000 kind of significant association and make our collaborating oncology very busy now, right? And so, and also when you think about it, this kind of large scale study of spatial proteomics was previously unthinkable because of the cost, right? And finally, the holy grail, right, is really like, can we actually simulate the longitudinal patient journey, right? So GPT-4 learn by predict next token, next token, next token, and virtual patient can learn by predict next medical event, and so forth, right? And as a kind of like baby step, we collaborate with Epic and Yale. We basically portraying this probably by now, for now, the largest virtual patient model called Curiosity, basically portraying from hundreds of millions of patient journey. What's really exciting is that by doing this seemingly brain dead way, right, but at a very, very large scale, it start to acquire this sort of so-called emergent capability, right? So this kind of model, right, using seemingly pretty dumb simulation inference, right? We just say, hey, here's a history. Predict what happened next in the next year, next 10 years, right? And then you can start to apply that to various kind of predictive tasks that people care about. So actually what we find is that this model out of the box actually match and outperform sometimes supervised models specifically built for each application for 78 tasks, right? So to us, this is a little bit of kind of a glimpse of, or maybe using Sebastian's spark of the kind of like GPT moment for virtual patients. So in summary, I think we are at a very exciting time for AI for medical discovery, and AI clinical trial is sort of like really one of the frontiers. So looking forward to picking up your brain. Thanks.